Welcome to another episode of Composer Talks with White Bear PR. On today's show, I have composer and songwriter Joseph Stevens. Welcome, Joey.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hello. Professionally, Joseph Stevens, Joey, for those of us that are familiar with him.
Correct, yes.
So Joey is a frequent collaborator with Danny McBride, Jody Hill, and David Gordon Green. His work includes scores for the HBO series Vice Principals and Eastbound and Down, the TBS series The Last OG, and most frequently the HBO comedy series The Righteous Gemstones. Coming up, he has the Amazon sci-fi series Upload, and the Mindy Kaling series Never Have I Ever, and the drama thriller Don't Tell a Soul. Now, Joey, first of all, how are you doing in your quarantine lockdown lifestyle?
I'm well. Getting a little stir crazy here and there, but overall good. I feel healthy. I need a haircut, but the weather's nice. I go on a lot of walks. We make a lot of food here at the house. Playing a lot of piano and reading a lot of books.
Good. I'm glad to hear that you're keeping busy and creative. Now, you have worked with several directors that you often collaborate with. I was wondering, how important do you think it is for composers to make relationships with directors early on in their careers, and how do you go about doing it?
I guess, I think it's important. I owe a lot to the relationships that I made in college with these guys that I work with. That's how I met Danny and Jody and David, and so everything kind of blossomed from that point. I don't really know how to go about doing it other than connections lead to connections, and after doing various projects with Rough House, Danny and Jody, met people along the way that's opened doorways into other opportunities.
Very nice. How did you meet Danny McBride, and how did you start a working relationship with him?
As college, I didn't know Danny as well in college. I knew him. I got to know him better outside of college. We made a film called The Foot Fist Way out of college that was directed by Jody Hill, who I knew a little better during the college years. When I was in college, I didn't go to college with them, but I went to a neighboring school, and I played in a band, and so I traveled to School of the Arts and hung out with a bunch of those guys, and I would score some of their student films and got to know a lot of them then. A handful of that group went on to make some projects together as a team, one of which was The Foot Fist Way. And that started Danny McBride and kind of put Danny on the map. And my band at the time scored that film, and I worked on the sound department for the film and was just there the whole time. And that's kind of how I got to know Danny. And then from there, it's just, this is a close-knit group. So we just, we're fortunate to have Foot Fist Way perform the way that it did and kind of get everybody on the map, and they just kind of ran with it and kept getting bigger and bigger, and the projects kept coming, or they kept creating things. And so they brought me along for the most part for a lot of that. Yeah.
Nice.
I guess I got to know him more outside of college than during college.
And when you say college, like, where was this? You don't have to say the school if you don't want to, but I'm just curious.
It was in North Carolina.
Oh, North Carolina. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now, do you say that, or do you think that there's a great community of filmmakers in North Carolina?
I would say yes. Yeah, certainly. I think that a lot of this core group of guys and gals, they out of college, they moved all over the country, and they've all kind of reconvened. A lot of them are in South Carolina now, but in general, they all kind of got their roots here, and they come back here because the film community is vibrant, and there's a lot of good people, solid crews, and nice incentives, year to year. And so they believe in that, and so they've set up their shop here, and they've based all of their productions here. Halloween was shot in South Carolina, like an hour or a couple hours south of me right now, and Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, Righteous Gemstones. Those were all filmed here, and so they rely on that, and as a result, it's produced a lot of interesting, great stuff.
Nice. Now, I wanted to know, on Righteous Gemstones, this is your probably fourth or fifth collaboration with Danny, or what number is this now?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, Gemstones, Foot Fist Away. They produced some films that I've been a part of as well that they weren't
Right.
necessarily in or acting in. So yeah, I mean it's about 10 probably all in all, producing, you
Wow.
know, and acting in. Yeah.
Incredible. And so on Righteous Gemstones, you not only do the underscore, but you also songwrite on this series. And I just was wondering, how would you compare the processes of underscore versus songwriting?
It's very different for sure. The songwriting is usually it's more specific. It has like, for using Misbehaving as an example, like we wanted it to sound like a 60s song from these kids. And so I'd never written anything like that before. So all my directions and all my creative output was in that direction. And so having never done that before, that those kinds of specifics, that inherently made it a lot different than scoring, you know, dramatic scene or like a, you know, chase scene or some love scene or something like that. So I mean, I think it all depends on the song, and the score. So I mean, the score for Gemstones was, it had a lot of kind of traditional underscore elements, with drama and some traditional instrumentation,
Hmm.
mixed with some weird stuff. But you know, with using the song side of things, that was more. You know, I wasn't thinking about underscore. I wasn't thinking about how to make this more dramatic. You know, I'm thinking about how do I make this sound like, it's made by the Carter family in 1962. You know, not so much how do I make it sound like interesting, you know, dramatic, investigative music, or you know, any kind of
Right.
typical underscore type thing.
Yeah. And now you mentioned Misbehaving, and it's such a catchy song. I really, really love it. You guys did an incredible job. Can you just talk a little bit about how that song happened, how it all came together, and the process of making that?
Well, yeah. So in the narrative for Gemstones, there's a sibling duo, and we see them only as adults in the show, at least as of now, and season one. And so, but in the history of those characters, in their backstory, we learned that they had a hit song as uh, kids, and you know, 10 or 12 years old, in the 60s, performing this song that had like a surprise hit. And so that was written into the script. And then so then we had to create the song. Initially it was like not really, it was written into the script and we weren't really going to see or hear the song. But as they started developing scripts and ideas, it blossomed into the necessity to actually create the song. And so yeah, so it turned into like a real thing. And so I started studying a bunch of Carter family songs, like Carter family, Johnny Cash, early 1960s kind of pop country, I suppose at the time,
Yeah.
and use that as the groundwork for the initial 60s version of the song, which would serve as the original version of the song. And basically just kind of went all in and tried to make it as genuine as possible. Like went to a studio, recorded everything, with a bunch of session guys, and tried to create mixes that mirrored mixes from the 60s, you know, a being or auditioning different tracks from the Carter family library just as I was recording the song, trying to make it sound as genuine as possible, and using instruments that are really old, and trying to, you know, do as much as I could to make it sound legit. Uh, but yes, I mean, that's the recording side of it. Throughout the process, once Danny told me that he wanted it to be like an actual thing, a song that exists in the world, and that kids would need to sing it, and it turned into a pretty daunting experiment. But yeah, so I started composing some ideas, and some of the writers, Danny and Edie Patterson, started spitballing ideas while they were in the writers' room, and we sort of collaborated and shared ideas. And I got this voice memo from Danny that was Edie singing an a cappella version of the song, just like, Daddy, you know, Mama told me not to, I did it anyway. Just the hook of the song, and some, like the first verse and some of the chorus. And I kind of took that and then just ran with it and created more verses, and put it into a chord progression, like a structure, and put in a little whistle interlude and gave it like a narrative arc where it starts off with kids being bad, doing bad things, and after the chorus and after the whistle interlude, the kids have made a right turn, and they're behaving now, not misbehaving, and so they get scared by the devil, scared by fear of the devil, and then they turn into good kids. And so it has this like this narrative arc. Yeah, and then I just sent it back to Danny after like within a day, and it just turned into the song. We never really changed it from that point forward. It just kept getting more and more. It just kept getting better and better, just because it was, for a while, it was just existed as my vocal track and a guitar. So once we actually got the kids' voices in there and got Jennifer Nettles and Walton Goggins to sing it, it just turned into this whole new song. It just really opened everything up and made it feel so much more vibrant and interesting and unusual, familiar, but not, so it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was just totally, it's really daunting at first, but in the end, it kind of came together really quickly, and there wasn't a lot of thought. It was just kind of feeling, just kind of jotted down a bunch of lyrics, and all the melodies were really catchy, and everything just kind of fit into place. The whistle just made sense, and silly lyrics that sound fun, kind of weird, childlike, but also fire and brimstone, unusual kind of vibe. It was all super fun.
That sounds fun. And you mentioned there's basically two versions of this song. There's the kids, and then there's the adults that are singing the same song, basically. Which did you record first?
Definitely the kids. Yeah, it was all, I definitely wanted to approach it as, try to treat it. That was the number one objective for me, was to make it sound like it was a song from the 60s, and to have kids sing it, and to not really cut any corners on the production to make it for that initial quote unquote original version. And so I definitely focused all my attention on that, which was more interesting to me as like the producer or like writer of the song, just because I'm a Johnny Cash fan and Carter Family fan and all of that. So it was fun to kind of get into the details of how they recorded some of that music, and to try to kind of like pay homage to it and do it right, and have something we're all proud of. And then when the live version came about, for the version that takes place in the 80s with Jennifer Nettles and Walton Goggins, that had a whole different vibe. Like the song was more, everyone knew the song a lot more. Like some of the writers were all kind of obsessed with it. It had been circulating amongst the crew. So by the time like mid-shoot, we came to the moment where the actors needed to perform the song on set. It was, it was very well known. Everyone was already singing, and so it was just like this jubilant moment, where it's just like we're finally getting to realize this experience, like the song, like seeing it like that, and having those actors come in and perform it, and then seeing them do the clogging and all of that was like pretty impressive and a lot of fun. It was a very nice, rewarding, like, bow on everything, sort of, so to speak.
That's great. I love the behind the scenes stories about how the writers room and the crew and everybody being such fans of the song before it's even performed on the set. And from the moment it aired, there was a huge reaction in the media and fans that just loved the song. They said it was just one of the catchiest songs that they'd ever heard on TV. And I was just curious, what was your reaction to that? Like, how do you feel about all the positive response you got from?
I mean, it's great. We love it. Yeah, we love it. It's we're very proud of it. It was once once we had the song, once Danny and I were listening to it, and Edie were all kind of obsessing about it, listening to it nonstop, just amongst ourselves. That's one thing, but then also to have it, like the crew reaction, like people getting really confused about what the song is, because it does sound very familiar. It sounds like a song that you probably have heard, even though you may not have. And so that was the number one goal, just to make it convincing, and to have that reaction out there in the world. It was great. And my wife actually sent me something, like somebody had sent her a YouTube clip where someone had pulled the version off of the show. At the end of this episode where Misbehaving is performed, we hear the kid version at the end of the song over the end credits. Someone pulled the audio off of that and put it up on YouTube. And someone found that and sent it to my wife thinking that they had found the original version of the song. I guess that person had never didn't watch that episode or watched it to the end. But
Right.
yeah, so this person thought that they had discovered the original track, and that's the goal, is like to be convincing. So yeah,
Totally.
it was our track the whole time. So it was you know, that's exciting for us. It was the only time I really ever get like anxious or interested in a lot of reaction out there. I mean, I'm always interested on a certain level, but when that episode premiered, I was very aware of not numbers per se, but like, you know, looking to see if, you know, reviews or reactions, just to see, because we were so excited about the song, just to see what the world would, how the world would react, or how like fans of the show would react to that. So that was definitely like a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we know, they reacted very positively, and people were mad about the song. So I still listen to it. I think it's so much fun. I think it's just both the kids and the adults. They're both great versions of the song.
Thanks.
I'm curious. Are you working on any songs for season 2?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they definitely want to push that further. And so, yeah, we have, there's more. I don't
Great.
know, you know, I don't know how, I've not read the entire season, and now everything's on hold. So I haven't really seen any scripts past 7, I think. So I don't really know exactly where it's going to go, but yeah, there's a handful of songs that we'll hear.
Great. I can't wait to hear them when they eventually do come and air. Um, what do you think is the biggest misconception for composers?
That's a good question. Misconception. I think for composers, you mean like how, I guess, what we misconceive or how we are misconceived?
How you are misconceived? What might be an expectation put upon you that
Yeah.
is common, that is the misrepresentation of what composers actually are about?
Sometimes I get asked to do things where, you know, like if there's a certain sound of a piece of music, it's temped into a scene or a sequence. Sometimes what they're asking for is huge. You know, it's like either it's like Star Wars, something really, you know, recognizable, or scope wise, it's just a giant orchestra and the works, every kind of instrument or choir, all of that stuff. And
Mhm.
they say they want that, you know, without having any kind of, I guess, knowledge about what it takes to do that, knowing that it's going to cost money and X amount of dollars and certain resources that aren't really afforded to certain projects. And so sometimes that can be challenging when when I'm asked to do something of epic scale, when I have to do it on a smaller budget and find a way around it. A lot of times that can be, I don't know if that's a misconception, so to speak, but it is. It's like I'm sure a lot of composers out there are asked the same thing. Just like, we want to have, you know, something huge here, but you know, we can't do it like that. It can't sound like that, but it just needs to be huge like that. You know, either it's recognizable or it just needs to sound like a giant orchestra, or you know, this or that. But with budgetary constraints or time constraints, a lot of times that's not possible. And so sometimes you have to be the bearer of bad news. You know, if you want to say like, we can't do a giant orchestra. We can't do, you know, 30-piece orchestra here. We
Right.
can work a way around it. But I mean, I guess that would be one misconception. Another one that I get a lot is like, people think that uh, that I'm the one that places music into film. So like the music
Right.
supervisor.
Yeah.
So people tell me how much they like this or that, certain songs that are in the show or movie, and I'm just not. I have to tell them I'm not the one that ever does that. You know, it's not my job.
Yeah, that's a common misconception I hear from a lot of composers. Yeah, people think that they're the music supervisor, and they don't quite understand that there is an original score being composed. They just think it's music that is licensed in, or whatever they
Right.
think that instrumental pieces are, but that there's an actual craftsperson behind the scenes making that originally for the show.
Right.
Well, Joey, thank you so much for being on Composer Talks with White Bear PR. I really appreciate you taking the time and talking about your awesome work on the Righteous Gemstones and that super catchy song, Misbehaving. If you haven't heard the song yet, please go to Spotify and check it out. Both versions are on there, so you can listen to the kids and the adults sing. Plenty of videos on YouTube, including the clip from the show. So if you haven't heard it, go check it out. If you are watching us on YouTube or listening via our podcasts, I encourage you guys to subscribe to hear more episodes of Composer Talks with White Bear PR. Thanks again so much, Joey.
Thank you so much.